In order to accelerate the research and development and promotion of advanced agricultural machinery, step up the research and development of large-scale intelligent agricultural machinery equipment, small machinery, and gardening machinery suitable for hilly and mountainous areas, and support the integrated application of intelligent monitoring terminals and assisted driving systems. Opinions on promoting the key work of rural revitalization, the 4th Agricultural Full-Scale Unmanned Operation Test and Industrial Innovation Conference and the start-up of the full-scale unmanned operation test in hilly areas were held in Fuling District, Chongqing City on May 25. This activity is guided by the China Machinery Industry Federation, hosted by the People's Government of Fuling District, the Vehicle Information Service Industry Application Alliance, the Whole Unmanned Operation Test Consortium, the Fuling District Agricultural and Rural Committee, the Economic and Information Technology Committee, and the Whole Unmanned Operation organized by Technology Co., Limited and other units, Zhanghong Chen, Academician of the Chinese Academy of Engineering and Honorary Chairman of TIAA, Xi Enjinhua, Second-Level Inspector of the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology, more than 400 people from the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology, the National Tobacco Administration, the National Natural Science Foundation of China, enterprises, universities, scientific research institutions, local governments, and large agricultural growers attended the event, including District Mayor Lu Zhong. Hilly and mountainous areas account for 2/3 of my country's land area, 1/3 of the agricultural area, and nearly 300 million agricultural population. Agriculture in hilly and mountainous areas is an important part of my country's agriculture and the main battlefield for rural revitalization. The Party Central Committee and the State Council have always paid close attention to the work of agriculture and agricultural machinery in hilly and mountainous areas. There have been clear work instructions in the number 1 document of the Central Committee over the years. The key work of the Ministry of Agriculture and other departments. In 2022, the Whole Unmanned Operation Test Consortium will focus on the 4 major field operations of key crops such as rice, vegetables, sorghum, tea, citrus, and Camellia oleifera in hilly and mountainous areas, and carry out a large number of field research work. More than 30 kinds of technical products have been collected at home and abroad, laying a solid foundation for related work in hilly areas. In this test, self-driving tractors equipped with advanced terminals such as Baidu navigation, automatic driving systems, and automatic operating tools, vegetable live broadcasting and transplanting machines, arched robots, automatic weeding machines, sound and light pest control systems, unmanned aerial vehicles, a batch of equipment such as harvesters has been demonstrated and trained on site for farmers. According to Peng Chunlin, the person in charge of the Whole Process Unmanned Operation Test Consortium, the first phase of the Full Process Unmanned Operation Test in the hilly area launched in Fuling focuses on promoting the integration of mechanization and informatization, and improving the popularity of comprehensive mechanization and informatization degree. According to the planning of the Smart Agricultural Machinery Technology Roadmap, the consortium will promote the design ideas of smart machine architecture, universal digital chassis, new power system, integrated operation tools, fusion perception system, and multi-mode collaborative operation in agricultural machinery design and product application. Practice and innovation in the field, in accordance with the direction of concentrated types, core focus, and multifunctionality of one machine, strive to launch a batch of new hilly and mountainous agricultural machines and terminals that conform to generalized, modularized, and standardized design specifications, with suitable power, lightness, dexterity, and convenient combination. And facility products, focusing on solving the problems of inorganic usability and ease of use in agricultural production in hilly areas. The Full-Scale Unmanned Agricultural Operation Test is an innovation and entrepreneurship activity officially launched in 2018 under the guidance and support of the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology, the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs, the National Standardization Management Committee, the National Natural Science Foundation of China, the Chinese Academy of Engineering and other relevant departments. In Yaizhou, Laval, Innovation Center, Baiduan, Zoomlion, Fengzhang, Dongfen, Lianji, DJI, Dongfen Jinghuan, Lutan, Labor Saving, Zonk Momentum, Soleil, Xinyuan, Jifen, Lixinlong, Shaoxing, Silei, Hezong Sizuan, Wuhan, Huida, CTI, Railway Construction, Sanhitan, Yanmen, Beidou, Huai, Zongshen, Xianyuan, Nongxianfen, Bingfen, Jiangda, Nanning, more than 100 domestic and foreign backbone enterprises in agriculture, agricultural machinery, vehicles, weapons, construction, machinery, electronic information, etc. With the participation of public institutions, nearly 600,000 units, sets, of various intelligent agricultural machinery, systems, and terminal products have been sold in trials. Comprehensive sampling and statistical work efficiency has increased by 60%, labor has been reduced by 50%, and the land utilization rate has exceeded 95%. While greatly shortening the operation time and reducing the operation cost, the consumption of fuel, pesticides, and fertilizers is also significantly reduced. The intelligent agricultural machinery with improved quality, increased efficiency, and reduced cost has been affirmed and praised by the majority of frontline users. Nearly 400 million viewers have watched the experimental work in various places through CCTV news and special programs. At the moment when Boeing 737 MAX continues to have accidents, is China's C919 large aircraft facing a historic opportunity? Talking about this topic, we cannot but remind us of a famous and far-reaching report when China was discussing large aircraft. China's Large Aircraft Development Strategy Research Report written by Peking University professor Lu Fen. This nearly 70,000-word report once had a major impact on the decision-making of China's large aircraft, and later spread to the society, causing people to pay great attention to China's large aircraft. In 2015, Ms. Zhao Yining, the chief reporter of 21st Century Business Herald, interviewed Professor Lu Fen on the past events of the large aircraft decision-making process, revealing many inside stories about the decision-making process of China's large aircraft. The difficulties and twists behind the scenes back then, and all kinds of games. Today's dialogue is worth rereading carefully. History will never forget all those fighters who devoted themselves to this cause and died. Although many years have passed, but reading these words still makes my heart surge. 30 years of China's large aircraft. Never underestimate the determination of the United States and Europe to conspire to kill China's large aircraft. 1. Big aircraft decision backtracking. Zhao Yining, I read the research report on China's large aircraft development strategy written by you 10 years ago. This report has a great influence on the decision-making of large aircraft, and it is still deafening to read now. You are not inside the aviation industry. What led you to get involved in the big aircraft debate? Lu Fen, the rediscussion on large aircraft was in 2003, when the government changed. Wang Dehen, an academician of the Chinese Academy of Sciences and the Chinese Academy of Engineering, wrote a letter to the responsible comrades of the State Council, proposing to restart the development of domestic large aircraft. Since Yun 10 was discontinued in 1985, this topic was brought up again in the 1990s. Everyone in the industry knows that at that time the main leaders of the State Council had clearly stated, the current government will not consider large aircraft. The background at that time was that China's state-owned enterprises were in a period of painful reform, and a large number of defense industries were transferred from the military to civilians. Since then, China's defense industry has experienced 20 years of arduous transformation. Why is the big plane being mentioned again? There are two important incidents. The first incident was the 1995 to 1996 Taiwan Strait crisis, and the second incident was the 1999-1999 US-NATO attack on the Chinese embassy in Yugoslavia. These two incidents have touched China's sensitive nerves in safeguarding national sovereignty. In this context, the big plane was brought up again. After these two incidents, the Chinese government leadership began to increase investment in the defense industry, which is why we have a series of achievements that we see today, such as the J-20 and J-10 fighter jets. I participated in the debate on large aircraft from the perspective of industrial research. In 2004, I completed the research report The Current Situation and Countermeasures of Independent Development of China's Automobile Industry. This report has a great social impact. The core point of the report is, the joint venture model of China's auto industry in the past 20 years is wrong. It must rely on itself and take the road of independent development. After the report came out, someone asked me, are you interested in large aircraft? Because I was committed to industrial research, of course I was interested, so I was brought into the field of research on large aircraft. Zhao Yining, this year, 2015, marks the 30th anniversary of the Yun 10 dismounting. What is puzzling is that the military is the direct link to the above-mentioned incident. Why is it the scientific and technological circles that bring up the large aircraft again? Lu Fen, the scientific and technological circles have always believed that Yun 10 is a great scientific and technological achievement of China. Back then, we relied on our own strength to build a large plane and flew to Tibet many times to deliver disaster relief supplies. The memory of this period of history cannot be erased. The scientific and technological circles are very pragmatic, so after the discontinuation of the Yun-10, China's large aircraft project was repeatedly mentioned. The military also supports the large aircraft project, because this is also a shortcoming of the Chinese Air Force. For example, we lack early warning aircraft, tankers, etc., and the modification of these special aircraft requires a large aircraft as a platform. My judgment is that when China re-emphasized the strengthening of the national defense industry in the late 1990s, it should be due to the needs of the Air Force, so the scientific and technological circles also brought this matter up. Yun-10 chief designer Ma Fengshan, first from the right, visiting foreign guests. Zhao Yining, in 2004, we started the first round of demonstrations for large aircraft. Why was it organized by the Ministry of Science and Technology? Lu Fen, in 2003, Wang Deheng wrote members of the State Council to suggest that China should build large aircraft. In fact, the leaders of the State Council were persuaded, but in view of the existence of objections at that time, the State Council suggested that the demonstration of whether to re-enter the large aircraft project go to the of the National Medium and Long-Term Science and Technology Development Plan, 2006-2020. It is precisely because the National Medium and Long-Term Science and Technology Development Plan is compiled by the Ministry of Science and Technology, so the Ministry of Science and Technology joined in. The theme of the first round of demonstrations was whether China wants to make a large aircraft or not. Zhao Yining, it is said that among the 16 major projects proposed in the National Medium and Long-Term Science and Technology Development Plan, 2006-2020, the demonstration process of large aircraft is the most difficult. Is this true? Lu Fen, I did not participate in the first round of argumentation, but I know a little about the process. You will be surprised to say that the leaders of the two aviation industry groups in China were the ones who were least willing to resume the large aircraft project. Of course, they are not directly opposed, but always want to redefine the project. First, at that time the former first group of China aviation industry was developing the ARJ-21 aircraft, approved by the State Council in 2002, which was a regional aircraft and not a national project. Its research and development process was more difficult than imagined, the budget was broken, and the construction period was delayed again and again. The National Development and Reform Commission is not satisfied with this, so they want to define this project as a national project of large aircraft, so that the country will follow ARJ-21. In fact, later COMAC really took over the ARJ-21. Second, they believe that the large aircraft project should be a large military transport aircraft, not a civilian aircraft. The main reason is that it is more difficult to make a civilian aircraft than a military aircraft. Everyone in the industry knows that the research and development of civil airliners is not easy, because airworthiness certificates need to be obtained. Someone even said at the time that we couldn't compete with Boeing and Airbus. To be a civilian aircraft has to face competition, but to be a military aircraft there is no such problem. In the first round of demonstrations, the opinions of experts from all walks of life were basically unanimous, and they all believed that China must build its own large aircraft. The focus of the conflict is whether to engage in military transport aircraft or civilian passenger aircraft, so there are two factions of military aircraft faction and civilian aircraft faction. The aviation industry group wants to use military aircraft, and the Commission of Science, Technology, and Industry for National Defense supports them as its competent department. The military also supports military aircraft because of its own needs. The Ministry School is made up of experts from the Ministry of Science and Technology, and a National Development and Reform Commission in the middle. However, at that time, the National Development and Reform Commission was an assembly school. Whether it was a military aircraft or a civilian aircraft, they all hoped to find a foreign company to cooperate with. In the first round of argumentation, the military aircraft faction had the upper hand. Zhao Yining, it's unbelievable. Why is the aviation industry group the opponent? Lu Fen, it may be related to the origin of Yun-10. As a junior, I have also been confused, why Yun-10 is a major achievement of China's aviation industry, but why it is always belittled by the aviation industry. Yun-10 was done in Shanghai under the special conditions of the Cultural Revolution, so at that time some people said that Yun-10 was done by the gang. This argument is absurd. Although Shanghai was indeed controlled by the Gang of Four at the time, Anyone who is familiar with China's decision-making mechanism will know that they did not have the decision-making power for this major project. In fact, it was Chairman Mao Zedong's proposal to place the Shanghai Yunten project in Shanghai. In December 1968, after the first successful flight of China's H-6 modeled on the Soviet Union, the H-6 was the largest aircraft in China at the time. Premier Zhou Enlai asked the person in charge of the Ministry of Three Machinery, the predecessor of the Ministry of Aviation Industry, can the H-66 based on the design of a jet airliner? At that time, the leaders traveled on foreign planes, and they would not sell them to us, such as American Boeing planes. The answer from the Ministry of Machinery and Machinery was that it could not be done. This is why when Mao Zedong inspected Shanghai in July 1970, he said, "Shanghai's industrial foundation is so good that it can build airplanes." This is tantamount to an order for Shanghai. So in August of the same year, the National Defense Industry Leading Group of the Central Military Commission and the State Planning Commission approved the report on the trial production and production of transport aircraft in Shanghai proposed by the Air Force Aviation Industry Leading Group. This is the 708 project, that is, the large passenger aircraft Y-10. This is how Yunten got on the horse. Y-10 aircraft and never give up statue. Zhao Yining, the success of Yunten is a miracle. Under the conditions at that time, what is the most important factor for the success of Yunten? Lu Fen, the key is technological and institutional innovation. Although the Yunten project was placed in Shanghai, it has in fact formed a system in which technical leaders have autonomy, or a system called engineering. Ma Fengshan, the leader of Yunten, is an outstanding technical leader and technical expert. At the same time, the State Council made the Air Force Aviation Industry Leading Group responsible for business guidance and coordination. The person in charge was General Cao Linwei, the then Deputy Commander of the Air Force, who was also the leader of the Air Force Aviation Industry Leading Group at the time. I once asked a designer who participated in the development of Yunten why Yunten could be made. He said that there are three important conditions. First, the commander is someone who has fought in battles like Cao Linwei. Maybe they understand technology, but they understand strategy and decision-making, such as General Zhang Yiping, who organized and led the development and testing of atomic bombs, missiles, and satellites. It should be said that they are an unprecedented generation. It is precisely because of them that China's defense industry was able to achieve great achievements in that era. For example, when technicians disagree on the technical route, General Cao Linwei will listen to the opinions of the pros and cons, and after he understands it, he will make a decision that must be implemented, and there is no room for negotiation. His judgment comes from brutal experience in war. Second, there are technical leaders like Ma Fengshan. He has vision, strong technology, and dares to innovate, so he got rid of the Soviet model. He used to be the chief designer of the H-6, and until today the H-6 is still the main bomber of the Air Force. Thirdly, the group of people involved in the development of Yunten were drawn from the front line of research and development in various places, and it didn't take too much time to get used to it. Therefore, it only took 10 years to make Yunten, which is of the same magnitude as 2 bombs and 1 satellite. The total development cost of Yunten is 537.7 million yuan, including 334 million yuan for research and development, 174.7 million yuan for infrastructure construction, and 29 million yuan for working capital provided by Shanghai. Today we restarted the development of the large aircraft C919. The initial budget was 60 billion to 70 billion yuan. How many times it has been doubled? So it is a pity that Yunten was dismounted. Zhao Yining, under what circumstances did you join the second argument? Lu Fen, because I wrote a research report on large aircraft. At that time, it was the most difficult time for the demonstration of large aircraft. The focus is not on theoretical battles, but on people talking differently. In the status quo and countermeasures of independent development of China's automobile industry, I demonstrated from multiple perspectives that technical capabilities cannot be bought, so I think that the dismounting of Yunten is not just abandoning a product, but destroying us at the same time. The R&D platform and R&D system built by itself will of course lose its R&D capabilities. In January 2005, I completed the nearly 70,000-word research report on the development strategy of China's large aircraft. It should be said that my report at that time provided theoretical support for the Minji faction who emphasized independent innovation. Academician Wang Deheng wrote a letter to the leaders of the State Council. He was talking about a large aircraft, but he didn't say whether it was a civilian aircraft or a military aircraft. That's why there was a controversy later on whether it was a military aircraft or a civilian aircraft. Because there were differences of opinion in the first round of demonstration, the State Council proposed a second round of demonstration for large aircraft in 2006. The title of this demonstration was Demonstration of Implementation Plan for Large Aircraft. Moreover, the State Council clearly stated that the second round of demonstrations will be included in the demonstrations of 16 major special projects in the National Medium and Long-Term Science and Technology Development Plan, 2006 to 2020. Judging from the topic, the premise is that the State Council has decided to start the large aircraft project, and what needs to be discussed is how to start it. The National Medium and Long-Term Science and Technology Development Plan, 2006 to 2020, was compiled by the Ministry of Science and Technology. When the list of experts was proposed, the National Defense Science and Technology Commission, the National Development and Reform Commission, and the General Armament Department opposed my participation. He was the Minister of Science and Technology at the time. Su Kwanhua once told me that since the State Council asked the Ministry of Science and Technology to take the lead, it is mainly based on the opinions of the Ministry of Science and Technology to find who to participate in the demonstration. Zhao Yining, regardless of this matter, I personally think that Minister Su Kwanhua has played a great role in the development of China's science and technology and the promotion of major strategic projects, and he is a person who should be remembered. Lu Fen, one of his greatest contributions is to promote the proposal of independent innovation policy, and the other is 16 major special projects, both of which are directly related to him, and finally become the central decision-making. The second round of expert demonstration group consisted of 19 members. Although the relevant ministries and commissions had disputes over some of the experts on the list was finally approved by high-level officials. Experts in the demonstration team include senior executives, scholars, and technical experts of the first and second groups of China Aviation Industry Corporation, representatives from the user side and relevant persons in charge of China International Engineering Consulting Corporation. The demonstration team is chaired by Gu Songfen, the chief designer of the J-82 who is an academician of the two academies, Li Wei, the former president of Beijing University of Aeronautics and Astronautics, and Zhang Yansong, the former general manager of China Aviation Industry Corporation too. Gao Yang and I participated as scholars. Since the determination of the central government was already obvious at that time, there was not much conflict in the second round of argumentation. On February 26, 2007, Wen Jiabao, then Premier of the State Council, presided over the executive meeting of the State Council, listened to the report of the Large-Scale Aircraft Major Project Leading Group on the Large-Scale Aircraft Program Demonstration Work Report, approved in principle the formal establishment of a major scientific and technological project for the development of large-scale aircraft, and agreed to establish a large-scale passenger aircraft joint stock company, and required to be carried out as soon as possible. It should be noted that the dispute between military and civilian aircraft in the first round of demonstration was a zero-sum game, but the result of the second round of demonstration was that military and civilian aircraft were launched together, which resolved the contradiction. I belong to the optimistic faction. China is so big that both civilian and military aircraft are needed, and we should do both. In March 2007, China announced the launch of the Large Aircraft Project, C919 in Shanghai, and Large Transport Aircraft in Shaanxi. November 2, 2015. The first C919 machine rolled off the assembly line in Shanghai. 2. The dismount of Yun-10 destroyed the research and development platform of the large aircraft. Zhao Yining, I went to Shanghai twice for interviews. The saddest memory is the conversation with an old worker who used to participate in the Yun-10 project in Shanghai. In the ARJ-21 assembly workshop, he told me that the current aircraft is for assembly, but when developing the Yun-10, we made the engines, avionics systems, and cables by ourselves, and there are more than 30 radio sets in Shanghai alone. Factory and established a large aircraft industry chain. How do you feel about this problem? Lu Fen, ARJ-21 and C919 cannot be said to be assembled, because the entire project and overall design are independent, which is essentially different from assembling foreign products. Of course, many systems of the large aircraft currently being developed need to be imported. The dismount of Yun-10 has disintegrated China's supporting capabilities. As the old worker said, after Yun-10 was dismounted, the industrial chain was also broken, or the foundation of capabilities was also broken. Those who participated in the Yun-10 project all retired. Over the past 30 years, although Bihang has graduated every year, who of these young engineers has ever built a large aircraft? Therefore, the dismounting of Yun-10 is not just throwing away an aircraft, but almost self-defeating martial arts. Since then, China has lost the product development platform for civil airliners. Fallback. But at the same time, Boeing and Airbus continue to improve and innovate on their respective product development platforms, and their technical capabilities continue to improve with product updates and upgrades. As a result, the gap between China's technological capabilities and those of the United States and Europe has shown a trend of scissors in the past 20 years, and it has become wider and wider. This ever-widening gap has actually caused the ever-increasing threshold that China encountered when it re-entered the field of civil aircraft. More than 20 years later, when we started to build large aircraft again, the real problem was that there was no related industrial chain in China, and everything had to be started from scratch. Zhao Yining, at present, COMAC adopts the main manufacturer-supplier model. Is this a world trend or a common practice, or is it a last resort? Lu Fen, this model itself is not a problem, as are Boeing and Airbus. But we are very different from those two companies. Although Boeing left some research and development to Japan and other countries, all the main components of Boeing's previous aircraft were made by itself. The industrial chain used to be in its own hands. It is just because of the cost that it does not do it now, but its ability has never been lost. They have the technology and ability to coordinate supply chains. Boeing is the boss of the supplier, and the supplier is the supplier. I am afraid that COMAC is still unable to do this. COMAC probably has to listen to suppliers sometimes because we don't know much. Why did this happen? The root cause is that we have no experience. I think technology includes knowledge of two natures, one is general or explicit knowledge, and the other is tacit or tacit knowledge. General knowledge is principled and has the nature of public goods to a certain extent. But tacit knowledge and the various tricks and operational details derived from it can only be obtained through experience, that is, it can only be learned from practice. From this point of view, because of our lack of experience, it seems that they are all main manufacturer-supplier models on the surface, but there are still differences in essence. The main domestic supplier of C919. Zhao Yining, in your report, there is a large section on platform construction and capacity building. Lu Fen, I've been thinking about this. I once had a suggestion in the report, which was to make the Yun-10 fly again. The information and data from that year are all there. Please ask those who have been lucky 10 to lead the young people again and dig out all the experience. Doesn't Shanghai Aircraft Factory still have a Yun-10? Although the engine has disappeared, it can be bought again. To make the Yun-10 fly again, this suggestion was possible before COMAC was established. However, this suggestion was opposed by most people, even those who advocated for civil aircraft. They all thought that the technology of Yun-10 was too old, and there was no need to make it again. Zhao Yining, these words seem to have some truth. Lu Fen, why does it make sense? The gap between China and Boeing and Airbus lies in our lack of technology sources. Think about it, whenever Boeing wants to develop the next generation of new models, a large number of tests are done on its previous models, such as the design of the new airfoil. It has been verified in flight, but we have not, so how can we talk about experience? The C919 is about to roll off the assembly line. Although we have done the whole process, does COMAC know what the C919 looks like when it flies? Have no idea. If the Yun-10 can go around and carry out this mission, the Yun-10 will awaken the memory of our capabilities. When I put forward the go-around suggestion, I didn't mean that the large aircraft project was the Y-10's go-around. I hope that through the Y-10's go-around, the Y-10 could become a research and development platform, which would be beneficial to the development of new large aircraft. Key indicators of C919. Zhao Yining, when I interviewed Wu Zhengxi, he said that the current status of Yun-10 is hard to say, because the project of Yun-10 has not been abolished. Lu Fen, the reason for the go-around is like the Liaoning when China builds an aircraft carrier. Liaoning was bought from Ukraine's old aircraft carrier Varyag, so why didn't we design a top-level aircraft carrier from the beginning? This is because of our lack of experience. The aircraft carrier is a large and complex system, and it would be too difficult to do complex things from scratch. If there is a step in the middle, it will speed up the learning process for novices, and it will not hinder the development of higher tech carriers. Therefore, The Navy has always said that the Liaoning is a training platform to accumulate experience and prepare for the next step in developing its own new aircraft carrier. It is conceivable that when the new aircraft carrier is put into use, the flight system for the takeoff and landing of Chinese carrier-based aircraft has already been formed through the Liaoning, and then applied to the new aircraft carrier will greatly reduce the pressure to solve the problem. If the ship is new, other systems including the flight system are also new, and they all need to be explored from scratch, and they will face huge risks and difficulties. This is the same as the reason for the return of the Yun-10. All technologically complex products, including automobiles, must inherit the original technology. It allows developers to focus on the places that need to be changed most, without having to overthrow and start over. If the go-around was chosen at the beginning, the cost of developing a large aircraft would be much less. My question is, why can't the intelligence used on the Liaoning aircraft carrier be used on large aircraft, not to mention that the Yun-10 is our own technology from head to toe? Zhao Yining, now it seems that the possibility of a go-around is even smaller. Just take the avionics system as an example. It has been developed to the 4th generation of modularization. The technology is developing too fast, and the gap is getting bigger and bigger. Lu Fen, yes, 10 years have passed since I made that suggestion, and people are getting old. But the lesson is that we don't value our technical experience too much. They often say that they want to be the most advanced in the world, but after throwing away their own experience, they can only fall into dependence on foreign technology. I remember that at a meeting discussing the large aircraft project in 2004, an old professor of Beihang University who was engaged in engines said that if a large aircraft could be produced in 20 years, the engine would take 50 years. The dramatic thing is that he suddenly changed the subject and said that the Yun-10 engine was made by ourselves. Although it was also an imitation of the Pratt & Whitney engine, the entire Chinese aviation industry cannot do it today. The technical capabilities of the Shanghai engine back then, it has completely disappeared. The factory buildings and equipment have been demolished long ago, and the personnel have also been dispersed. If we can continue to improve on the product development platform of that engine, do we still need to set up the 17th engine project today? Speaking of which, it is a pity for a large aircraft, and the engine is even more pity. The engines that have been made only exist in memory. The people of that era were really miraculous, including the successful development of 2 bombs and 1 satellite. In May 2017, C919 made its maiden flight at Shanghai Pudong International Airport. Zhao Yining, now COMAC has set up 16 joint ventures for C919. How do you comment? Lu Fen, in fact, for highly complex products like airplanes, especially large airliners, the key to product development is not the mastery of a single technology, but the ability this integration is concentrated in the overall plan of aircraft design. From this point of view, it is correct for COMAC to choose the path of independent research and development. As for the establishment of a joint venture company, it is obvious that its purpose is to localize parts and components, which is the idea we have been insisting on for decades. The Chinese auto industry has set up many joint ventures to achieve localization, but without German suppliers, how can we do it ourselves? That's the problem. Suppliers do not have the ability to make an aircraft fly into the sky. They can only do avionics, engines, etc. It is the main manufacturer's ability to make an aircraft fly. Even if all Boeing's parts come from suppliers, it's still you have to do what I tell you to do. Boeing has been making airplanes for almost 100 years, and it knows how to make airplanes fly, so suppliers must be honest with Boeing. However, COMAC's main manufacturer-supplier model lacks experience and capability. At this moment, we must not be blindly optimistic, or even say leading technology. Technological leadership cannot be achieved with determination and money. Technological leadership relies on long-term technology accumulation. In short, I think it is better to do better than not to do well. We cannot achieve the highest level now, which means we have no experience, but if we don't do it, we will never have experience. 3. COMAC must go on firmly. Zhao Yining, the C919 is about to roll off the production line, but before that, COMAC faced great pressure due to the delay of the first flight. What do you think? Lu Fen, I think society should be more tolerant towards COMAC. On the surface, everyone sees that the product they are working on is the C919 large aircraft, but behind the production of the product is that they are building a product development platform and improving their technical capabilities. Of course people hope that C919 will be successful, but if something goes wrong, Don't judge a winner or loser based on the advantages and disadvantages of the product in the early stage, otherwise the tragedy of Yun 10 will repeat itself. We have already learned the lesson. Now China is in the process of passing the threshold of large aircraft manufacturing. This large and complex technical product requires the accumulation of experience. As long as we have a research and development platform, as long as we gather a research and development team, no matter what difficulties we encounter, we must move forward until we succeed. The country's strategic goal is not just to obtain one or two products, but to establish a sustainable product development platform and finally obtain technical capabilities. Starting from this goal, the early level of the product is not the key is whether it can be continuously improved and finally realized industrialization. As long as this strategic focus is clarified, the will and established long-term goals will not be shaken because of short-term shortcomings and weaknesses. Therefore, people should fully realize the preciousness of technical capabilities, be firm-willed in cultivating the technical capabilities of large aircraft, and provide long-term and unremitting support. Zhao Yining, after the C919 rolls off the production line, it will immediately face its first flight and obtain an airworthiness certificate. The road is long. During the ARJ-21 test flight, in order to find the cloud for the icing test, we flew all over the world, but at first we couldn't find an area that met the icing climate conditions. In fact, the ideal climatic conditions for icing can only be met in specific areas of the Great Lakes region of North America, and the FAA is well aware of this. So when our plane finally came to the area, they weren't even on the scene. I want to say that the ARJ-21 is only a 70-seat regional jet, and the C919 is the main model that shares the market with Boeing. It may not be so optimistic to obtain the airworthiness certificate. Lufen, China's large-scale aircraft project will definitely touch the nerves of international vested interest groups. We must never underestimate the determination of the US and European political and businessmen to conspire to kill China's civil aviation industry. Americans and Europeans understand better than many Chinese that once China begins to build a large aircraft development platform, the question is no longer whether the level of Chinese products is low or high when they first appeared, but that China's technological capabilities will definitely pass through this stage. The platform grew up. At the national level, if we want to be clear about this matter, even if the United States or Europe does not give us an airworthiness certificate, we must insist on flying, and if we cannot fly international routes, we will fly domestic routes. March 2018. ARJ-21 conducted a crosswind test flight at Keflavik International Airport in Iceland. China has a special big country effect, and our market is big enough to support a civil aircraft industry. As long as there is determination, Europe and the United States will give us airworthiness certificates one day. If it doesn't work in 10 years, it will be 20 years, and if it doesn't work in 20 years, it will be 30 years. If you don't fly, you can't get verified. Of course, we still need to study the airworthiness system carefully. After all, this is the valuable experience accumulated over the years. It should be noted that, for large-scale and complex technological system industries, such as aviation, communications, and high-speed rail industries, in addition to the products themselves, their international competitiveness is actually an important part of the government's capabilities and national capabilities. The market economy is very complicated and must not be simplified. Let's put it this way, the market economy taught in economics textbooks is a vegetable market economy, where hundreds of vegetable stalls cannot affect market prices, which is most in line with the situation of perfect competition. But the high-end manufacturing market is not. For example, Boeing and Airbus determine the speed of technological progress, the structure of the industrial chain and the price of the entire civil aircraft industry. Of course, there is also the experience base they have accumulated with the government. A large part of the reason why people buy Boeing planes is because they have confidence in the US government. However, at present, some people in China think that as long as the government does not care about anything, there will be a good market economy and the industry can be upgraded. This is too naive. The capabilities of the US federal government are very strong, including the regulation of the aviation market. Zhao Yining, C919 will be officially rolled out. How do you feel? Lu Fen, this day is of great commemorative significance. It marks a historic breakthrough in China's high-end manufacturing industry, and it also marks the rise of China's industrial development from being addicted to low-end economic activities to high-end. China's large aircraft project was won by many people and generations, including the generation of Yun 10. Therefore, although Comac wants to be a commercially successful company, what it undertakes is the entrustment of a nation. Every one of us Chinese should support Comac to continue. Even if there is a 50-year gap between us and the advanced level, if we insist on doing it for 200 years, then the 50-year gap is nothing. Congratulations to Comac. Note, this article is included in Zhao Yining's Great Power Project, published by Renmin University of China Press in May 2018. The author conducted in-depth research and interviews on the 4 Chinese super projects of large aircraft, high-speed rail, UHV, and Hong Kong Zhuhai-Macau Bridge.